which would then be sent to the internet all the way to your Instagram server or YouTube server. And the process is very similar in the reverse direction. Let's say you were downloading a picture or you were streaming a video. Data packets from the Instagram server or YouTube server would make their way to the servers located in the central office, who would do a bunch of processing. And then they will forward it, route it to a cellular tower located close to you. And the servers at the base of the cellular towers would do some processing and send it to the antenna. And the antennas located on the top of the cellular tower will transmit this information wirelessly that would be received by your phone and converted into picture or video that you would then consume. So that in a nutshell is what a mobile network is and how they function. To summarize, a mobile network is the entity that allows our mobile devices like phones or tablets or anything which has a SIM card in it to connect wirelessly on one hand to the telephone network, so our mobile device can make and receive voice calls, and on the other hand to the internet, so our mobile device can access everything on the internet that you would normally access even if you were not on a mobile device. This is section 2. In this section, let's understand what is meant by generation of mobile networking. We are talking about 5G, which is the 5th generation, and the world has seen 4 generations of mobile networking prior to this, starting from the first generation to 4G. And historically, there has been a new generation once every 10 years, roughly. The first generation took off in the 1980s. The 1990s was all about the second generation or 2G. 3G was most popular during the 2000s. And then 4G, of course, was most popular during the 2010s. And 5G is expected to be the most popular generation in the 2020s. But what is it that makes one generation different from the others? What goes into the making of a new generation? There are 3 stages in creating a new generation. The first stage is defining the use cases, the capabilities that the new generation of mobile networks must be able to provide that previous networks were not able to support. And remember from section 1 that when we talk about mobile networks, we are talking about the antennas at the top of the cell towers and the servers at the base of the cell towers and the servers located in the central office. So collectively, what capabilities must be provided by these antennas and servers in a new generation that were not provided by the networks of previous generation? That's stage 1. Stage 2 is defining the technical requirements. Once we have defined the use cases, stage 2 is defining the technical requirements that need to be met to be able to support these use cases. And these will become more clear when we talk about examples, when we go through each of the 4 generations. So hold on for a moment. And the third stage is to define the technology, the new technology that can meet these new technical requirements, which in turn would then support the new capabilities, the new use cases. So whenever we talk about a generation, we need to think about what are the new use cases that need to be supported in this new generation. What are the new technical requirements that need to be provided to be able to support these use cases? And what is the technology? What is the new technology that can meet these new requirements? So if we talk now, go through the 4 generations of mobile networking that the world has seen so far. First generation, this was 1980s. Remember, in those days, we used to have only landlines to make and receive phone calls. The internet was not mainstream yet. So in first generation, the use case was very simple, which is, can we make phone calls when we are on the move? Is it possible to make phone calls while we are on the move? That was the use case. Very simple. Can we make mobile phone calls? Right? And the technical requirement that was needed in the first generation was seamless mobility, in, meaning the mobile network should allow a user, a subscriber like us, holding a mobile device, to move around a geographical area from one street to another, or one town to the next town, or one city to another city, or one state to another state, while still being able to make phone calls, while not dropping the phone call. That was the technical requirement. And the key technological shift that was needed was going from non-mobile voice, meaning landline voice, to mobile voice. And there were various technology standards that made up the first generation of mobile networking. There was a standard called AMPS, there was a standard called NMT, there was a standard called TACS, TACS. Those were all first generation or standards for the first generation of mobile networking. When we came to the second generation was created by the need to support mobile for the masses. The first generation, uh, mobile networking was limited to the elite. Only a very few people, the rich and the well-to-do, could afford a mobile phone and make voice calls. It was not a mass technology. But once we had solved the problem, of course, the natural question that people ask next is, can we enable this, mobile for the masses? And that was the use case. That was the use case for second generation mobile for the masses. And the key technical requirement that needed to be met to be able to support this use case was more voice capacity. We needed to increase the voice capacity, because if we want to take mobile to the masses, if in a given area not just one or two, but hundreds of people need to be able to make voice calls, we need a more voice capacity. That was the key technical requirement in the second generation of mobile networking. And the key technological shift that needed to happen, and that happened in the second generation, was the shift from analog voice to digital voice. In second generation is when for the first time voice was digitized, when being communicated from our phones to the mobile network. So that was second generation. And again, there were a bunch of standards, technology standards, that met the requirements and the use cases of second generation. There was something known as DAMS. The most popular one was GSM and GPRS. There was also something known as CDMA1. So all those were technology standards for the second generation of mobile networking. Then once we had solved this problem, and this was in the second generation was popular in the 90s. That was also when internet became popular. You might remember the early 90s and late 90s is when internet really took off. So the natural question that people ask next is, now that we are able to make and receive voice calls on our mobile devices, can we now also access the internet on our mobile devices? And that was the new use case that required a new generation of mobile networking. So the key use case that led to the creation of the third generation of mobile networking was the need for mobile data, right? And the key technical requirement was that your mobile network now needed to be optimized for data, now needed to be capable of supporting data, not just connections from your mobile device to the telephone network, but also from your mobile device to the internet, right? That was when, for the first time, mobile devices could connect to the internet and you could browse and check emails and so on. So the key technological shift that needed to happen was the introduction of mobile data, and there were again a bunch of technological standards that met these requirements and supported these use cases required by the third generation. One of the most popular technology standards was CDMA 2000. Yet another popular technology standard was WCDMA or HSPA plus, and there were a few other technology standards that made up the third generation of mobile networking. So once we had enabled mobile data, of course, the next question people ask is, can we get faster and better data connection? Can we actually get broadband-like experience on our mobile devices? 3G, remember, took off in the 2000s, and 2000s was when home broadband had become mainstream. People were getting tens of Mbps, 50 Mbps, 100 Mbps of connectivity on their home broadband connection. But in the third generation of mobile networking, you could only get on the order of hundreds of kbps, maybe a megabit per second on your phone. So the natural question that people ask is, can we get broadband like experience even on our mobile devices when we are connected to a mobile network? And that was the new use case that required, or that led to the creation of the fourth generation of mobile networking, 4G. The use case was to support mobile broadband like experience, tens of Mbps or hundreds of Mbps on our mobile devices. And this meant the key technical requirement that needed to be met to be able to support this use case was more data capacity. And that led to a lot of technological shifts. To make that happen, there were a lot of technological advancements that were needed. And the most popular technology standards that would meet these requirements and that made up the fourth generation of mobile networking was LTE, which is something that we are all familiar with. So LTE was a technology standard that met the requirements of the fourth generation of mobile networking and could support the use cases, which was broadband like experience over mobile for fourth generation. So this is the evolution that we have been through already. One question you may ask at this point is, who defines these generations? Who defines these use cases? Who defines these requirements? Who defines these technology standards? So the use cases and requirements are defined by a body known as ITU, International Telecommunications Union. This is a body, this is an agency of the United Nations. It's a specialized agency of the United Nations. It has representation from over 200 member countries and over 700 associates, which are private companies or NGOs and such. And this is the forum for governments and private sector to coordinate technical and policy matters related to global telecom. So this ITU is the entity that defines, that lays down the definitions for what use cases must be supported by a new generation of mobile networking and what technical requirements must be met in order to support those use cases. And once ITU has laid out these use cases and requirements, then different standards bodies get together to work on defining technology standards that can meet the requirements and use cases laid down by ITU. And one of the most popular standards body is 3GPP, or Third Generation Partnership Project. This is an industry consortium consisting of companies and representatives from government from around the world, which is in fact the entity that defined the 4G LTE technology standard. And it is also, in fact, the body that is defining the standards for the most popular 5G technology, which is called New Radio. And in the next section, we will actually dive deep into 5G. We will talk about the fifth generation. We'll talk about what are the use